Absolutely. I'd like to welcome to the show co-directors Andre and Charles, transgender consultant Kerry, and star of Lupe, Raphael. How is everybody doing today?
So good.
Doing pretty well. Great.
We're doing fine, thank you.
Lupe is about a Cuban immigrant struggling with transgender identity while searching for their missing sister in New York City's underground sex industry. To you, Andre and Charles, what is the inspiration behind making this film?
There were definitely, as you can hear from that listening, there were several inspirations for making the film. All of them kind of stemming from real experience, lived experience of people who we were close to, and people that we spoke to during the discovery of the film. When we first started, progressing towards making a film, Chuck and I knew we wanted to make a film, and we were exploring a few different stories, a few different ideas. We're talking, when people say no budget, like we're firmly in that territory of not joking around when we say no budget. So there's a lot of challenges that come with that, so one, as we're beginning this conversation, someone that we spoke a lot with, Celia, who ends up being in the film as Lena, speaking with her and speaking a little bit about things that she was going through actively and that she had faced previously and would be facing down the line on her journey, really started opening our eyes, and I think really kind of drove where the film progressed from that point forward. And beyond that, personally, most of some of the closest people growing up that I was closest to growing up, outside of my family, were folks from other countries, other parts of the world. The town I grew up in was an extremely diverse one. My best friend growing up, his family was from multiple countries in the Caribbean. My first serious relationship, her family was from Chile. Like, everybody that was really important to me was from somewhere else. So there was elements that worked their way into learning from them about some of these aspects. At least.
Yeah, and we definitely, we knew we wanted to make a film, and we weren't sure at first what it was going to be. But like Andre said, speaking with Celia and learning from her experience, and then also just wanting to make something that we felt was as authentic as we could make it. We knew whatever we were going to tackle, we were going to do our best to make it an honest depiction, and the best depiction we could. Even if it was something that we had very little personal experience or knowledge about, we were going to find the folks, the talented artists who knew about this and could bring it to life. And very luckily, fortunately, we were able to do that with talented members of the team such as Kerry and Raphael and others.
The perfect segue for Kerry here. The LGBTQ community is underrepresented in Hollywood. How important was it to you to be able to consult on the project, but also make sure they got it right?
Okay, so I don't think it's a case of just making sure that they got it right. It's a case of just being able to get our stories in there in a sympathetic and genuine and honest way. There's no right or wrong, okay? And I came to the project late. I was brought on by Sharan, the editor. This is 2017. I'd just come out and outed myself as transgender at Disney. And she approached me on a forum saying, would you be interested in looking at a project I'm cutting as like an associate editor or consultant? And she gave it to me, and then 3 days later, she was badgering me and said, where are your notes? When am I going to get your notes? And I said, you can get my notes when I stop crying, because it meant that the story was just so beautiful, and the threads that they got going through it was so relevant to what I was feeling, what I was experiencing, but also more, again, talking to being an immigrant. I myself am an immigrant here in America. I'm from the UK. And I was estranged from family. I've lost contact with family, didn't know where they were and things like that. So these generally in every person threads that go through it just meant so much. It was just the real sort of cherry and icing on the top, was being able to give a transgender perspective.
Absolutely. Raphael, this role is very deep, and the mentality behind it, it's emotional, but also physical. How did you prepare yourself to take on this role?
Well, first of all, and the physical aspect of it, Andre got me into Muay Thai fighting classes, and he took them with me. And I think it was amazing, having to train in the martial arts, that it was foreign to me, such as, it's a language of its own. And also having the opportunity of doing it with him, it was definitely bonding time, and like it solidified our relationship from the get-go. And then like psychologically speaking, um, by the time that we that I got cast to into this role, this was we're talking about 6 years ago. I was uh, identifying myself as a gay man, and back then, I thought I knew about the trans experience. I had no idea. As soon as I started diving deep into the research and start reading biographies and books of some sorts, um, it the process started to like come to life to me, and it was healing and powerful in many ways, in the sense that started my self-exploration to the point that today I identify as non-binary, and that process started with that film. Also having in mind that when we were shooting this film, I had no idea that this was going to end up in HBO. I think like none of us did. So all this, is very rewarding and surprising and beautiful. But it was an honest process, and it was a process in which I feel like everyone that was involved truly was giving their 100%, 100%, and yeah, all their time and energy, and you could tell that it was very meaningful for a lot of people for different things. Um, one of my co-stars, Celia, the one that plays Lana, like she was one of the ones helping, like developing the scripts in the first place. You could see how important this was for her. So stepping into like this role after preparing for it, like physically and mentally, meeting her on my first day of shooting, it kind of round everything. I feel like as soon as I met her and had that first interaction with her, I realized what I was preparing for, and I was like, wow, this is an important story, and here's a person that it's like, being is going to be affected by this the most in this process. So I immediately knew like the responsibility that I had, and yeah, it was incredible.
Perfect. So question back to um, Andre and Charles. Raphael's fantastic in the film. Great casting, just start to finish. You're emotionally attached to the character, and I feel like Raphael brings that to the table. What was it about Raphael that made you cast?
Well, first off, we agree. Raphael was fantastic and is fantastic.
Thank you guys.
And so first I'll mention a shout out to our casting director Sarah Conte, who we found her in New York, and we asked her to cast this movie, and we definitely gave her some challenges. We said, we're going to be doing a non-union film because of a budget range. We're going to be casting, we want to cast authentically from an immigrant population, someone who is an actual immigrant, not just someone who's playing an immigrant to the United States, and we want to cast members of the LGBTQ community. And, and also we have no money. So we basically said, here's a real big challenge, find us a breakout superstar. And yeah, but we were so lucky. We found Raphael and many other great actors, Christine and others. And I think I do recall the first time we read Raphael, and Raphael came in, and everything about the posture and the positioning was authentic and genuine and very winsome. This is a person you want to cheer for, root for, and also just an incredible actor, an incredible person. So we were so.
He's for hire.
Yeah, who is for hire? Absolutely.
Yes. I don't know what casting directors are out there. Like, why aren't you on ahead of the biggest TV show right now? But we'll be.
Thank you guys. Really, this opportunity was the world.
It was phenomenal, and it was a no-brainer for us to cast Raphael.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was it was one of those things that as very, very early feature filmmakers, it was our first feature, walking into that studio, and I wish I could remember the name of it, in New York, where all those casting calls. I don't know if you remember Raphael, but being able to like do that and then have meeting talent of the caliber of Raphael and Christine coming in, you're like, whoa, this is why people do it like this. This is the real deal. These are what casting calls really can bring. These are the kind of people you can meet, and these are what talented folks are like to work with. I mean, I think in that first casting call, Raphael, even though you hadn't done any of that Muay Thai training with us, and you had just really become acquainted with the story and all that, and on its initial face, like you moved between those two assets of the fighter, the feminine side, and being a natural human, kind of swinging between both of those.
Well, I do remember the audition very well. And I remember that one of the sides of the audition was that scene with Arun when he faces Arun in
Yeah.
the boxing arena place where they trained.
Yeah.
After Arun has, like find out that he's trans, or find out that, he's not the person that he thought she was. And she goes to him asking him if they're gonna go back to training.
Yeah.
And he has that harsh rejection from this person that she has feelings for. And like for me, obviously, as a gay man back then, I could relate to that rejection, and I was like, I understand this pain. So it was for me it was very accessible. And yeah, I remember you guys like being like, yes, that's it. And I'm like, well, great.
Yeah.
We got this.
Kerry, how important is it that we tell more authentic stories of the transgender community?
It's very important. Okay, one of the reasons why I wanted to be attached to this project after seeing a rough cut was that it was one of the first films that I'd seen and noticed in which we weren't victims, we weren't sociopaths, we weren't serial killers, and we weren't just on the game. To have a story in which it's a real human being exploring real emotions and real feelings that work on so many different levels. Yes, it's very important we have stories like that out there, because we are human. We just want to be loved. We're just individuals. We just want to get by. And especially at the time when the film was being produced, we were under number 45, and the whole community was getting marginalized and ghettoized, and even transgender people were being dehumanized in forces and other places as well. To have something which says, hey, we're just people, we bite, we bleed, we love, we cry, we laugh. It's very, very important. And we need to keep telling stories like this, because if we don't, it's so easy for us to get ghettoed again and stuck off as some kind of fringe peculiarity that they use in other narratives in Hollywood.
Raphael, what is the biggest thing that you learned from working on this project?
Oof. I feel like what I took from this project is like, there's nothing more important than knowing who you are. Because when you know who you are, you're in peace with yourself, and everything else kind of fall to peace. And I feel like that was the big lesson for me as a person and as an actor as well. I feel like I got to grow with this character that was in a search for authenticity in a moment in my life where I was also navigating that search. I remember going to those first meetings with managers and agents back when I was in New York, shooting this film. And I remember having these conversations, like, we're talking about 21st century. Like, yeah, if I'm gonna represent you, you cannot be openly gay. I'm like, are we really still in that narrative, everyone?
Unbelievable.
And I feel very proud of myself that through my journey, I've stayed, very open with my sexuality, my life, and my art. And look, like, again, I feel like this is the biggest paid out that I could get. Like, all of a sudden having this platform of HBO receiving me and receiving us, just speaks volumes to like the resilience of, staying true to yourself, like let the world adapt, So I feel like that's the biggest thing I took from this.
Absolutely. Andrew and Charles, one more before we go. What do you want everybody that watches Lupe to take away from this film?
I think I think ultimately it is, aside from having a good time and enjoying watching a film that, means something unique to them, I think is the universality of the character story, right? What Lupe experiences and goes through and where they end up as a person, I think has a lot of parallels in many people's lives. So I hope that it's a way that people can not only understand circumstances and experiences that are different than their own, but they can also see themselves within those experiences in a new way and in a more compassionate way.
Absolutely. And hopefully also, we're so blessed and excited to have the platform on HBO, but perhaps it'll bring some perspectives and a face to some terms that people hear in a lot of parts of their country that they aren't familiar with. A lot of people in this country will hear the term immigrant, but they might live in a Midwestern town and never have actually met someone outside of the town, or they might hear the term transgender or LGBTQ, but it's just a term they see or yelled at them on talk radio or maybe in a newspaper. If you get to see and see a face, see a person, see a winsome characters struggling with real life things, one of the things we tried to do, and hopefully we were somewhat successful, is make the Lupe character, the Raphael character, flawed. Like, not a superhero. It is a superhero, like badass, but also it has mistakes, makes mistakes, and sometimes gets a little too violent, and is a real nuanced, hopefully, person. And hopefully just to humanize that. And, again, but it's the depictions by amazing talent and the work by the amazing, cast and crew that brought that to life. And that's what we can hope for.
Sure, I'd like to just add in there, if I may, that, at festivals, we had people come away and talk to me about them sort of saying they'd never ever thought about our community before, or they had concerns about a family member that may be in the community but was hiding, and just being able to sort of have that level of let's prejudge, don't preconceive what a people are and where they're from and who they are. Let's just talk, and let's just be a little bit more, not necessarily accepting, but open to discussion and understanding.
Thank you guys so much. I watched this movie, I think it was 7:30 this morning, and I spent about an hour and a half crying. So I just wanted to thank you for that as well, guys. It's a beautiful film. Raphael, your performance, it's one of the best performances I've seen in a long time. It's a really endearing film, and
thank you so much.
I hope that everybody gets to see this. It drops on HBO Max February 26th. I hope nothing but the best for all of you, because the film's really, truly amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for having us today.
Yes.
Yeah.